Hey guys, we're back for chapter 38 of Book Scavenger, and it is juicy because Emily just found a map in the gold bug, and we're gonna go see where this leads, and I am pumped. So let's get into it. Here we go, chapter 38. Emily, James, and Matthew stood in the dark and deserted Portmouth Square. The only light came from the dull orange glow of lampposts and the high-up windows of surrounding buildings. A fog had descended on this part of the city. It wrapped around trees and crept through bars of the playground. "Do you know anything about this place?" Emily asked James. "They call it the heart of Chinatown. A lot of elderly people hang out here during the day. My uncle comes here to play cards." He pointed toward the pagoda-style awning that sheltered picnic tables. A lump of sleeping bag was curled up on one of the benches, its dark form bold against the white fog. "I guess it's also a hot spot for homeless people. They'd stay away from that area if they could help it." "So what are we looking for?" Matthew asked. He wore his new oversized plush sweatshirt and hat, and he held a rolled-up poster signed by all the band members. They had also promised him VIP tickets to any future concert of his choice. At the edge of the park, the silhouette of a miniature ship rose from the mist. "Is that a pirate ship?" Emily asked. Her feet squished in damp grass as she crossed to the statue, thoughts of treasure chests in her head. It was too dark to read the lettering on the face of the stone. Emily trailed her fingers over the engraving. "Here," Matthew whipped out his cell phone. He cast the light of the screen over the words. Emily read them aloud. "To remember Robert Louis Stevenson." She gasped and clutched Matthew's arm. "Watch the poster," Matthew said, shaking her off. "The map said RLS, Robert Louis Stevenson. He wrote Treasure Island. This has to be it. Whatever we're supposed to find must be somewhere near here." Matthew continued reading the inscription aloud as Emily circled the monument, examining it more closely. James inspected the nearby benches. "To remember Robert Louis Stevenson, to be honest, to be kind, to earn a little, to spend a little less, to make upon the whole family happier for his presence, to renounce when that shall be necessary and not be embittered, to keep a few friends, but these without capitulation." What does capitulation mean? I don't even know what that means. Jeez. Matthew pondered. "I think he's saying to be a good friend without expecting something in return," James said as he poked a stick under a trash can. I'm glad James is smarter than me. Emily was crawling around the base of the tree, the knees of her jeans soaked and chilly, and felt a twinge of guilt remembering their fight. Matthew finished reading the inscription. "Above all, the same grim condition to keep friends with himself. Here is a task for all that a man has of fortitude and delicacy." Matthew turned off his screen light. Sounds like a serious guy." Emily's knees crunched against a hard object, and she yelped. She ran her fingers through the grass. Her fingertips brushed over something cold and smooth. She thought it was a pebble, but it wouldn't budge. "Matthew, bring your light over here." "My battery's running low," but he crossed to Emily anyway. The stone was shaped like a beetle, flat enough to be concealed by the grass, but bulky enough to catch a toe if you hit it the right way. "It's like the story," Emily said. In the gold bug, a beetle marks the spot where the treasure is hidden." This had to be what Mr. Griswold wanted them to find. She'd been waiting for this moment since they'd first discovered Mr. Griswold's book. She thought she'd be jumping up and down with excitement, but instead she felt trepidation, kind of like when you step on black ice and realize you're going to fall a second before you actually slip. James tried to lift the beetle but couldn't. "Someone want to help me?" Matthew held his phone aloft to light the ground, still protectively clutching his poster with his other hand. Emily and James tore at the grass and dug under the beetle until they could grasp it like a knob. It was attached to a stake in the ground. They seesawed the stake back and forth to loosen the dirt until they could pull it free. The bottom of the stake widened into a mini shovel. Oh my gosh. I need to take a deep breath. I'm like really excited for this. "Dig," James said. "We're supposed to dig." They used the shovel as well as cupped hands to scoop the dirt. Oh, sorry. I was supposed to show you this picture of them getting the treasure out. Must be important. There's a picture. Oops. They used the shovel as well as cupped hands to scoop the dirt. They didn't have to dig long before they hit something solid, and soon a metal box was revealed. They pried the box from the ground. Emily undid the latch and opened the lid to reveal a yellowed stack of papers sealed in a clear bag. Taped to the front of the bag was a handwritten letter. Greetings, Scavenger. Congratulations, you have successfully completed my literary challenge and have proved yourself a master of riddles, puzzles, and navigating San Francisco and its rich literary history. You may be wondering about what you now hold in your hands. Allow me to indulge in a story. In 1841, my great-great-great-grandfather, Rufus Griswold, made the acquaintance of Mr. Edgar Allan Poe. Rufus Griswold was an accomplished editor, poet, and critic. In that day, some may have argued that he was even more accomplished than Poe. Having similar aspirations and interests, you might assume that my great-great-great-grandfather and Poe would be fast friends. Sadly, you would be mistaken. Their relationship was professionally tolerant at best and a bitter rivalry at its worst. Despite this, when Poe unexpectedly passed away in 1847, Rufus Griswold was named literary executor of his estate, and to the surprise of many, some claim he came about this by devious means and that Poe did not personally appoint him, but the fact remains that it was Rufus Griswold who was given access to the works of Poe and published a posthumous collection of his writings. Several years ago, I was going through my family heirlooms when I came across a manuscript that was assumed to be a novel written by my great-great-great-grandfather. As I began reading it, the style reminded me of someone whose work I am quite familiar with. I kept my hunch a secret, but had the manuscript authenticated by an expert. I am excited to tell you that the treasure you are holding in your hands is an undiscovered work by Edgar Allan Poe. Bayside Press will publish this novel, and this letter certifies that you, dear Scavenger, will be awarded 10% of the royalties from the sale of this book on the condition that you agree to return the manuscript back into my care so it can be properly preserved and displayed in a public library collection. Oh, whoa, this is so cool. I devised this scavenger hunt with the hope that anyone who made it to this point would appreciate my gift as the treasure it truly is and treat it as such. Yours in pages in play, Garrison Griswold. Okay, that's a sweet treasure. Wow, I'm jealous. That's cool. Okay. They stared at the letter in silence until the light from Matthew's phone snapped off. There goes the battery, he said. Emily lifted the sealed papers from the metal box and stood. She knew she was holding a one-of-a-kind literary treasure and should be feeling something along the lines of awe or amazement, but all she felt was disappointment. She was glad the phone had died so James and her brother couldn't see her face. After everything they'd been through to get here, why wasn't she happier to have reached the end of Griswold's game? Do you think it's worth a lot of money? James asked. I have no idea, Emily said quietly. I do, a voice said behind them. I love leaving you guys on a cliffhanger. That is the end of chapter 38, and I will see you next time, wow, for chapter 39. These are just like boom, boom, boom. I'm so excited. Bye, guys.